Welcome to Mamahood After Trauma, where healing and mamahood intersect. I'm Emily, your host. Join us as we discover practical strategies to nurture ourselves with kindness and understanding. Stay tuned for insights and inspiration to support you on your path of healing and growth. Let's dive in together. This is Mamahood After Trauma. Hello, Mama, and welcome to this episode of the Mamahood After Trauma podcast. I am your host, Emily Cleghorn, and I am so excited that you have taken some time out of your busy mama schedule to tune in and listen to this episode. Or if you're on YouTube, watch. Today's episode is a special bonus episode. We are going to be talking about unveiling your strength and values, two core pillars in transforming your life after trauma. We're going to explore how understanding your values and recognizing your inner strength can help you heal, guide your decisions, and help you build the life you want for you and your littles. Strength isn't just physical or mental resilience. It's also emotional, spiritual, and the courage to keep going, especially when things are tough. When stuff's hitting the fan and you keep going. And values are the core beliefs that guide your actions and decisions. When you understand what you truly value, you can create a roadmap for your life. Listen, Mama, if you are anything like me and many other mamas healing from trauma, you grew up in an environment where you didn't feel safe, seen, or valued. But you're determined to break the cycle. But without a clear understanding of your strength and your values, you're feeling lost and overwhelmed and vulnerable, quite frankly. Many of us have walked this path, unsure of how to reconcile our past with the future that we want for our children. So please continue listening as we begin to dive into uncovering your inner strength. So when we're talking about uncovering your inner strength, we're going to talk about it in three pieces. Okay, so the first piece of this inner strength pie, let's call it. The first piece is the strength that you already have. Now, one thing that I have come to know is that trauma survivors will often downplay their resilience because to them, the life that they've lived, the experiences that they've overcome and made it through the other side of is normal. It's normal to them. But surviving and continuing to show up even in a broken system demonstrates immense strength. You've already endured and adapted. You kept putting one foot in front of the other, and you didn't let any challenge or obstacle hold you down for a long time. It didn't knock you out. You're still in the game, Mama. And so we have to recognize the strength that we already have. The second piece of the puzzle is reframing your definition of strength. Strength doesn't always look like pushing through. I know that I thought that strength meant always pushing through and never struggling, but that's false. Strength doesn't always look like pushing through. Sometimes strength is found in softness, in seeking help, and in taking a break. So, an example that I can share with you from my own life is when I was, let me think here. It was the spring of 2023, actually, so not that long ago. I made an appointment at my doctor's office, and this is something that I was terrified to do. I made an appointment to seek out a PTSD diagnosis. So post-traumatic stress disorder or complex post-traumatic stress disorder can happen immediately after a traumatic event, or it can happen a lot, like it can be delayed. And so I, at that point, was really struggling. And I knew that I needed help. Like I've been on this healing journey for a while now. But I knew that there was something more help that I could access if I had the support of, if I was willing to open up about it. And so I made this appointment and I went to my doctor, and the physical response that I had from going to this appointment and like the workup in my nervous system that I felt from the anticipation of this appointment, my blood pressure was high. Like my doctor was almost ready to put me on blood pressure medication. I was like, it's situational. I'm fine. um, and I was expecting that my doctor was going to just automatically put me on medication. Not that medication is a bad thing, but I was afraid that I wasn't going to be heard. And so I got into this appointment, and my doctor and I started talking, and she listened to my story, surprisingly. And she provided me with some resources, a questionnaire that I needed to fill out. And she was very kind and very compassionate. And looking back on that situation, I can easily say that that moment, that day in April 2023, when I went to the doctor, despite my nervous system telling me to run the opposite direction, and I shared my story, I opened up about the emotional and physical struggle that I was facing, and allowing someone to support me in another in a way that I had not been supported was a moment of immense strength, because I was no longer handling it on my own. I was allowing somebody else in to help me because I don't have to do it alone. You don't have to do it alone. We can do it with support. And so for me, I felt like there was a black cloud looming over my head. And no matter what I did, or where I went, or who I spoke to, or whatever the situation was, it didn't matter what I did, the black cloud would not go away. I can tell you that after I received that diagnosis of having PTSD from my childhood, the black cloud dissipated. The black cloud has been gone. And the weight of that, through that diagnosis, I empowered myself. I gave myself hope. I took back my power from the black cloud. I named the dragon. And whatever your dragon is, you can name it. You can reclaim your power from it. It doesn't have to control you anymore. And so the third piece of uncovering your inner strength pie is discovering how to begin to unveil your strength. So here's where some actionable steps come in. The first action step that you can take is to reflect on your past experiences where you've shown resilience. And then take it one step further and write down a list of wins. Times when you thought you couldn't go on, but you did anyway. So I have this friend, a past client, and she was noticing little things like her patience with her children during tantrums and realizing those moments are proof of her strength. Because as hard as they can be on your nervous system, as hard as they can be to handle, she noticed that over time, as she became more and more aware and equipped herself with different tools in her trigger toolbox. I talk about the trigger toolbox in other episodes. If you would like to know which ones, just comment below and I will send them along to you. But as you equipped yourself with strategies and techniques in your trigger toolbox, you're able to build your resilience and your strength. And you're able to handle stressful situations like your kid throwing a tantrum. All right, now we're going to turn our focus to discovering your core values. What are core values, you might be wondering? Core values are your guiding principles. What matters most to you? And they shape your decisions, your relationships, and your priorities. And your core values can be clouded by your trauma. Because when you grow up in a chaotic environment, it's hard to define your own values. You may have been taught, likely were taught, to prioritize survival or people pleasing or hiding your true self to avoid conflict. And so it becomes kind of an excavation of sorts in discovering what your true core values are. And so, how do you clarify what your values are? Well, it's very similar to recognizing your strength, identifying your triggers. It starts with reflection. Ask yourself, what matters most to me as a mama? And you could journal this out too. If you think better with a pen in hand, you could journal it out. Ask yourself, what kind of environment do I want to create for my children? These are two very powerful questions. And I want to encourage you to ask yourself these questions and not judge yourself for the answers that come forward. Also, don't force it. It may take some time to sit in quiet, in solitude, and allow that answer to come to you, because I assure you, it is deep within you already. You just have to discover it. So are your core values honesty? Could be empathy, kindness, strength, loyalty, patience, self-respect. Things like this, hard work. Okay? So this client that I had, we'll call her Sarah. She realized that while she grew up in chaos, she deeply valued stability and peace. And as she honed in on her values, she started making decisions that aligned with those principles, creating a calmer home for herself and her children. So one thing that I talk about with my clients is valuing their yes and their no. When you say yes to one thing, you're saying no to another. So if you're saying yes to chaos, you're saying no to calm. Okay. And you have to think about, is the chaos a value that I have, or do I value calm more? And so making decisions that align with what you value. I want to challenge you to take 5 minutes after this episode ends to reflect and maybe journal on your core values. What matters to you as a woman, as a mama? I want to encourage you to look at all of the areas of your life, where you may be living out of alignment of those values. All right. So we've covered uncovering your inner strength, and we talked about those three pieces of the inner strength pie. We've talked about your core values and how your trauma can cloud your values and how to discover what your true values are. And so now let's talk about application. applying your strength and values. How do they shape your life? When you combine the strength you've uncovered with the values you've defined, you create a powerful foundation for healing and growth. Now, with all of this change and beginning to live more in alignment with your true core values rather than what you grew up in, the chaos, the confusion, the fear. As you begin to change, everyday decisions can feel overwhelming. That's a fact. But when you filter them through your values, the process becomes simpler. Remember what I said about valuing your yes and your no? When you say yes to one thing, you're saying no to another. So think about what your values are before you give a yes. Ask yourself, does this thing that I've been asked about align with my values? If it doesn't, it's a no, because you're saying yes to your core value. Listen, mama, healing is a journey, and there will be moments when it feels tough. This is where you tap into your inner strength, remembering those wins and knowing you've been through hard things before and can do it again can be so empowering. We've talked about a lot today in such a short period of time. We've talked about unveiling your inner strength and clarifying your values and how they can empower you to take charge of your healing journey and your life. Healing from trauma isn't easy, but you're stronger than you know. And when you align with your values, you create a clear path toward a more peaceful, empowered life. If you found value from this episode, I want to encourage you to hit the subscribe button, hit the bell so that you get notified if you're listening on YouTube, and be sure to find me on Instagram at emily.cleghorn.coach. And you can also become a VIP subscriber by joining my VIP subscriber mailing list, where you get exclusive VIP subscriber only content. Until the next episode, keep pushing through, mama. You got this. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to tune in to this episode of the Mamahood After Trauma podcast. If you would like more of the Mamahood After Trauma community, make sure to look in the description of this episode for the link to become a Mamahood After Trauma Inner Circle member. Until next time, mama, keep